I guess Curt Metcalf is a passport bro now.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS: Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS: Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other two books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today.
I got a chance to take a look at Hardware Season 1, Number 2 a couple of weeks ago, but I haven't had time to review it because I've been busy working on other projects like the upcoming John Haynes at Death's Door comic. And because I've been so busy working on the John Haynes at Death's Door comic and other video requests and other books that I'm trying to promote and put together, I haven't had time to really sit down and do a video review of Hardware Season 1, Number 2. Now, your Hardware Season 1, Number 1 turned your Curt Metcalf into a brother on the run, and this second issue further follows up on your Curt Metcalf continuing to be one of your Dakota's most wanted. Now, I'm wondering when John Walsh is going to pop in and do a scene where he talks about Curt Metcalf like he used to do on his old show, America's Most Wanted. And I'm also wondering when somebody's going to start playing the track from Cool G Rap's Brother on the Run, because that's what this whole comic has sadly turned into under Reginald Hudlin's authority. Now, the comic opens up with some carnage as related to the first issue, where your Hardware wound up blowing up some police helicopters. And we start to see a little boy named Deacon watching this carnage, and he's talking about how he saw a guy in a suit and a jetpack and how he needs to go to bed and he'll see him another day. Now, this is a pitiful attempt at foreshadowing as related to Hardware, and it's just not, again, a well done opening for a book. I mean, when you have a comic, you want to open with a splash page with the hero in the beginning, but this book starts out on a very passive note, and that passive note follows to lead to a bad impression on the reader. Now, as the book goes on, you have your Edwin Alva going out here and pretending that he's all about trying to show how your Curt Metcalf might possibly be innocent and how he's been implicated in the Big Bang. And it's all him putting on a face. And as we're going on, we see that your Curt Metcalf is in that same speech where he's in disguise as one of these guys from the FBI, it looks like. And they're trying to make it like your Curt Metcalf is some sort of master of disguise here, but all I see is another poor attempt at storytelling. Now, this is supposed to contrast the little boy named Deacon, and we start to see that your Curt Metcalf meets up with one of the black females at work who knows something about him, and they're talking about the conspiracy as related to Edwin Alva possibly causing the Big Bang. So we get all of these jumbled stories trying to come together, and it just doesn't really come together in a very cohesive fashion. Now, in this story, we see that the boy gets detention, and I'm wondering, what does this all have to do with Curt Metcalf being on the run? That's a critical question I have to ask as related to things in this comic.
Now, his black female co-worker sends him a message to tell him to get out of there because Alva has spotted him, and he uses this to create an explosive diversion and then runs up to the roof and jumps into his Hardware suit, Iron Man style. And after he gets into his Hardware suit, your Curt Metcalf winds up getting attacked, and we get a really weak tie-in to the story about the young boy as a result of the accident where he gets hit with these blasts. It leads to the young boy getting injured. Just really sloppy storytelling, and it just does not flow very organically with this comic. Now, this boy is supposed to be the collateral damage as a result between the battle between Curt Metcalf and Alva, and as he's dealing with that collateral damage, we get another typical villain for your Milestone comics, the evil white police officers.
Now, as he's facing off with the white cops, the little boy named Deacon winds up injured, and he's then confronted by more white cops. So I'm wondering, does Dakota have cops of other ethnicities, or are they all white males? Because it seems like in every story, all we get is Curt Metcalf blowing up white males, shooting white males, and this, again, book feels more like a wish fulfillment from those like Reginald Hudlin, and not a story in and of itself. I mean, in the first issue of Hardware, yes, we got the angry black man, but we also got a villain in Reprise, and we also, as the third issue came around, we got introduced to Death Wish. So I'm looking at the first two issues of Hardware Season 1, number 1, and I'm not seeing any bad guys except the evil white man and your Curt Metcalf being the brother on the run. And it's looking like a very shallow story that really has no layers or depth to it. I mean, the little boy is injured and winds up being taken to the hospital by Hardware, but the whole thing is it just doesn't come together as a cohesive story. Now later on, your Curt Metcalf comes in and meets up with his girlfriend, and then has to wind up telling her that it wasn't his fault and he has to go on the run. So he winds up getting on a plane, and after talking to Virgil Hawkins, he then goes out here and gets his passport and goes overseas. So this whole Hardware book is turning into a mess. I mean, it is the best book out of all of the Milestone books, but it just doesn't really come together cohesively the way the original Milestone books did, because the original Milestone books weren't focused on an agenda. They were focused on organic storytelling. They were focused on character development, and this book really does not develop any of the characters in any way, shape, or form outside of them going out here and taking on the man. And that really sets back comic book storytelling for Milestone about 30 to 40 years, because that kind of storytelling went out in the blaxploitation era of the 70s. And in today's era of comic book storytelling, we have companies like Concrete Comics giving us rich multidimensional characters like Acolyte, Absolver, and Odina, which have richer and more complex stories. And we have other independent comic creators like Raymond Leonard with Agent Solo going out here and showing us a covert agent going on different types of missions. So there are all sorts of different types of diverse comic stories out there from independent black comic creators like Concrete and many other creators like Raymond Leonard and many others that blow the doors off Milestone. And if this is the best Milestone can do as related to its relaunch, then I believe sadly it's going to crash and burn the same way that DC's Vertigo crashed and burned in 2018, because your creators at Milestone 2.0 are focused on making the exact same mistakes that they made at Vertigo, going out here focusing on identity politics and social justice narratives over organic storytelling, and building up a quality rogues gallery for their characters, and creating quality stories that answer that critical question every screenwriter has to answer, and that question is, why should we care? Now, by this second issue of Hardware, I'm not seeing much reason to care about Hardware, and I'm not seeing much reason to care about the Milestone 2.0 Earth M universe, because the Milestone Earth M universe does not seem to have any sort of depth or layers to the storytelling, and the characters do not really capture the spirit of the original characters from 1993's Milestone relaunch. It just feels very artificial, feels very fake, and it feels like the characters have been compromised to fit somebody else's social justice narrative, and every character is taking on evil white men, but we're not getting any sort of diversity of thought as related to the characters. Icon is no longer a conservative. Static is no longer a fun-loving teen. Hardware is no longer a tech guy looking to get fair compensation from the business he worked for. All of these characters' personalities, voices, and stories have been taken away and replaced by a leftist agenda that has them all speaking like a monolith and has them all expressing monolithic thought. And that's one of the most disappointing things about this Milestone relaunch, is these characters lost everything that made them distinct, and they're just pale imitations of who they were many years ago. So I'm deeply disappointed with your Hardware number 2, and I'm deeply becoming more and more disappointed with this whole Milestone 2.0, because it's not looking like quality writing being done. It's all more about pushing what people call woke agendas and not letting these characters truly be themselves. Now, my first comic, Easting No Good Deed, is available on Kindle for 99 cents, and you can get that book by heading over to Amazon.com by clicking the link in the description box. And my upcoming comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, is 55% complete, and Antonio Balderi is working hard on the art, and I'm also working hard on the logistics for the Kickstarter. So I'm hoping to have that comic out to you very soon, and I hope you'll put in a pledge when I launch the Kickstarter. And until then, you can pick up the books of the John Haynes series on the SJS Direct imprint by clicking that link to Amazon.com in the description box, and there you can get caught up on the John Haynes story by picking up the previous stories as related to John Haynes, such as The Temptation of John Haynes, The Man Who Rules the World, John Haynes, A Conversation with Death, John Haynes, Dark Succubus, John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, and John Haynes, Taking Care of Business, along with his appearance in ISIS crossovers like ISIS, Wrath of the Cyber Goddess, ISIS, Bride of Dracula, ISIS, Escape from Transylvania, and ISIS, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. So you can pick up all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find all of those books on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more comic review videos, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.